So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm glad you're here with us. And we are so excited to have Zoe and Cloyd with us again. It's been a while. So I will go ahead and introduce our fabulous musicians today, hailing from opposite ends of the Appalachian Mountains. We have renowned fiddler and vocalist Natalia Zoe Weinstein and award-winning songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and vocalist John Cloyd Miller. Their show is as diverse as their upbringing. They come from a lineage of klezmer and jazz musicians. Natalia trained classically in her home state of Massachusetts before moving down here to the South in 2004. John, a 12th generation North Carolinian and grandson of pioneering bluegrass fiddler Jim Shumate. Am I pronouncing his name correct? Shumate, okay, is a first place winner of the prestigious Chris Austin Songwriting Contest, as well as an Artist Fellowship recipient for songwriting from the North Carolina Arts Council. Longtime fixtures of the Asheville, North Carolina music scene, Zoe and Cloyd appeared in season 5 of the nationally syndicated PBS show, David Holt's State of Music. Their 4th studio album, Rebuild, was released on Organic Records in October of 2021. So we welcome you to be with us today. I will like to say to everybody, I am recording this so that you can go back and listen to it later, or those who are not able to join us on the call today will be able to listen to it later. And I will now turn it over to Zoe and Cloyd.
Thank you. Thanks so much for inviting us again to be part of your Creative Aging Network programs. We're honored. And thank you. I see a few familiar names. Thank you for those of you that are joining us, again from our last program in December, and welcome to new folks. Today we thought we'd focus a little bit more on some of our original music, as well as some klezmer music, just to sort of showcase a little bit more of our songwriting process, especially during the pandemic, and how we use music to kind of help us get through challenging times, or to help deal with difficult topics, or to help heal from challenging situations. So, and then at the end, hopefully we can have a little conversation about that, and would invite you to share, some of your own experiences with that. So maybe you can think about that while we're playing and talking.
And I would like to also thank Carolina Foundation for Jewish Seniors. Without them, we would not be able to do this program. So thank you to Carolina Foundation for Jewish Seniors for sponsoring this program.
Well, I guess we'll start off by, and again, if you have questions at any point during this, feel free to type them over in the chat or whatever. We'll leave some time later for that as well. We thought we'd start out with an original tune that we wrote that was written during the pandemic. We had some ideas for a song. A lot of songs were coming to us because we were at home more than we thought. At the beginning of 2020, we had been in Nashville playing at the Station Inn, a kind of a renowned bluegrass club there. And that's kind of when the pandemic really hit, And we had a pretty big year planned in 2020. We had a UK tour booked. We had some stuff in New England, out west, and a bunch of stuff in our region here. And then within, a month, it all vanished. It was all gone. So it was, we went from being a little anxious about how much we were going to be working in 2020 to we're not working at all. It was just a very bizarre time, and you guys all know what that felt like as well.
Luckily, we were able to, we were invited by some great filmmakers here in the area, Will and Denny McIntyre, who do David Holt's State of Music. I don't know if some of y'all have seen that on PBS, and UNC TV, and they live near us here in Hendersonville, and they contacted us about doing a pandemic arts documentary video, and also about doing David Holt's State of Music taping. So that was really wonderful experience that we got to have during the summer of 2020 when so much other stuff had kind of shut down. So we were really lucky to be a part of both of those filming experiences. So that was a big help for us musically and financially. So
Yeah.
we're glad to be part of that.
And we saw that with a lot of people, like, just having to pivot to different kinds of things, like maybe not playing live shows, but doing other stuff. And we did a lot of stuff like this too, virtual shows. So anyway, we were writing music as well. And, this song came out towards maybe, I don't know, maybe 2021 or
No,
was
it
it
was
in
summer.
20?
It's that summer, yeah.
I was collaborating. We had been collaborating with a friend of ours, Louisa Branscombe, who's a wonderful songwriter, and she recently moved to the area. She'd written a lot of hits over the years, bluegrass hits, and I had an idea for a song, sort of a pandemic-y song, and we finished it together, and it's called "Carry This Together." So we'll do this one for you to start out.
One, two, three. Doors are closed all over town. I'm trying to stand up, but it's pulling me down. I never thought I'd see the day. The kids can't even get together and play. Things aren't always what they seem. Maybe I'll wait tomorrow and find it was all a dream. What's a restless heart to do? Just trying to find strength to get me through. I should have been not home by the time here at home. Looking ahead to a better day, thinking of those we lost along the way. And I'll pray for all that's gone forever. We'll carry this together. Facts change into fiction day by day. What might be true tomorrow is fantasy today. Our daughter's outside playing in the yard, while we look on, pretend this isn't hard. We only have one song, one refrain. Wonder if this whole world will ever be the same. Sometimes it almost brings me to my knees. But I hope you know you can always count on me. I should have been not alone by the time here at home. Looking ahead to a better day, thinking of those we lost along the way. And I'll pray for all that's gone forever. We'll carry this together. Carry this together. Carry this forever. yes, that was Carry This Together, and that was part of the album that Leah mentioned, Rebuild, which came out last fall, and that seemed like an appropriate theme for the last couple of years and kind of where we're at now. It almost feels like we lost those 2 years. We're sort of starting back over again where we were in 2020 to kind of rebuild our schedule and our music and our touring and all that kind of thing for everybody, their lives, and seems like we almost just kind of lost those last 2 years. So I think Rebuild has been a good theme for us and for this album, and we're calling our summer tour the Rebuild Summer Tour. And that's a song that John actually wrote with our banjo player, but it's really hard to execute without our banjo player, so we're not going to attempt it for you today.
It's more of a bluegrass, straight ahead bluegrass song.
But you can check it out online.
Yeah. And so, during the pandemic and over the last couple of years, we were thinking about, we had released that record that Rebuild Natalia was talking about at the end of 2019, and we didn't really, right?
2021 Rebuild was 2021.
Oh yeah. Well, the other one was the one before that was. Yeah. So anyway, we kind of felt like we lost a whole year of not playing on the previous record, and then we made all these had all these new songs coming, and then so it was kind of a weird time.
Time warp. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a time warp. So,
but we've been also during the pandemic. We started. We were recorded Rebuild kind of in sections. We would do like 2 songs at a time. So that was sort of a new way for us to record as well, instead of just going in and recording the album all at once. But it just kind of worked out better logistically and for health concerns, and we could kind of just go in for like a day or 2 here and there and do it over the course of 2 years or a year and a half, I guess. But yeah, what are you going to talk about the next?
Yeah, I was going to say another thing we did during the pandemic, aside from writing music, is we were sort of diving even further into, our respective musical traditions as well. Continuing to use the time to learn more about, traditional music, and particularly we dove more into Natalia's side of the family, the klezmer material that we had really begun to utilize, I guess around 2018, 19 more heavily, and we really just started to learn more of that music, and we thought we'd play one of the tunes that we've been kind of beginning to work on. We also what's been crazy about the pandemic is we had this new idea of a record that we wanted to do about kind of songs of our grandfathers, stuff from our respective musical traditions, which hasn't really been announced yet or anything like that. But but we've had recording dates scheduled multiple times, and they keep getting canceled because somebody gets sick or whatever, somebody in the studio, who knows. So it's been.
So we're supposed to go in next week, so keep your fingers crossed that nobody gets sick.
But as you guys know, you just have to be so flexible these days with that kind of stuff. So anyway, we have semi-learned some of these new songs. But we thought we'd try one of the new ones for you. It's certainly not a new song. It's a very old song. It's called Bulgar Sigansky. Bulgar. It's got the Bulgar rhythm, which I'm working on.
So we'll give it a try.
Yes.
Let us know if you recognize this or if you've heard it before. We're still working on that ending, obviously.
That's a neat little tune, though.
Thanks for the class. Yeah, it's been fun to kind of incorporate that in with our bluegrass banjo player and have him kind of, yeah, so we'll sort of start off with more of the klezmer and bulgar rhythm and then go into like a 4/4, more of a bluegrass rhythm, and the rolling banjo is kind of fun to add into that. So we've been working more on fusing the klezmer and the bluegrass styles together.
Yeah, it's fun. We've been working with a real legend of klezmer music, Andy Statman, who lives up in New York City, and he's been sort of teaching us a few of the nuances of this music, and particularly, at least in my case, some of the rhythms, which are very different than the bluegrass and old time and Americana rhythms that I'm used to. So it's been fun to try to incorporate some of that stuff into this. It's been a really wonderful experience.
Well, speaking of wonderful experiences, last night we had a really special experience. We got to play for an event for a climate activist named Bill McKibben, who is the founder of 350.org and also thirdact.org. And he's been working for over 30 years to try to teach people about climate change and about things we can do to slow it down. Yeah, it was really great to be part of his event last night. And we wanted to play a song that John wrote one time when I think he was feeling frustrated and upset and concerned about climate issues. And it was sort of his outlet for, maybe you should speak to this, but yeah, sort of an outlet for a way to express some of those feelings.
Yeah, we talk about, this program's talking about healing through music, and I think music, at least speaking for myself, and I'm sure Natalia would agree with this, has always been something that all of us can rely on to be a place of solace and renewal and healing. It certainly has been in my life, and it continues to be. It's a music is a place, and I don't have to be playing it; just listening to it is a place I can always go to sort out feelings, or to escape or recharge, or whatever. Music really is magical, and it is healing, and but it can also be a place where you can vent feelings. If any of you guys write or prose or poetry or even songs, or paint, any sort of creative outlet like that can be really a wonderful venue for
Self-expression.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. So this song really coming up was that. I've always been really interested in environmental issues, and have written some songs to that effect. And this is one I wrote that, I was driving to a friend's house early one morning, and we had just gotten a lot of flooding around here. This is a few years ago, as we, continue to do, and so many places experience that as well. And I have a lot of family in Wyoming as well. And at the same time we were getting so much flooding, they were continuing to get more and more forest fires. As the West is really having a hard time dealing with that. It's getting worse. So this song was just about the juxtaposition of that. It came pretty quickly. I went to my friend's house and he wasn't there, and I wrote it pretty quickly. So it's called Rising Waters. You'll get by, so will we. It may not be the world we knew. Some say it's too late. We've set the course somehow. We're in it now. Waters are rising. Waters are rising around me. There's a storm outside, but inside trouble won't let me be. We're running blind. How much longer till we see that the waters are rising? Watch the west burn on a handheld TV screen as we're drowning in the mud. What have we done that we must choose between a fire and a flood? Waters are rising. Waters are rising around me. There's a storm outside, but inside trouble won't let me be. We're running blind. How much longer till we see that the waters are rising? Let the rains come down and the stars shine. Whatever truth may come, it's a fate that we design. Waters are rising. The waters are rising around me. There's a storm outside, but inside trouble won't let me be. We're running blind. How much longer till we see that the waters are rising? The waters are rising. The waters are rising around me. There's a storm outside, but inside trouble won't let me be. We're running blind. How much longer till we see that the waters are rising? That the waters are rising. Thanks, folks.
What did you knock over there? Oh my, the hamster pig?
I got distracted. Some little funny thing over here our daughter built with made up hamsters out of puff balls with I don't know what all kinds of
Fell on the floor.
fell on the floor.
Made a big mess.
Now
That's
it's
okay.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's all good.
So anyway, that's Rising Waters. And in terms of songwriting, I remember very vividly sitting down and thinking about that song and just wanting it to be a pretty simple song, something that really just kind of like hit home and was real anthemic, which is different than when you write, bluegrass songs or other things like that. It has a little bit more of a a kind of anthemic feel. That's the word that comes to mind. A good sing-along kind of feel. So anyway, that helped me though in that moment. I felt satisfied that I was able to express what I was thinking about, and yeah, that's it.
Power of music.
It healed me in that moment. I felt healed.
You feel healed every time you sing it.
I like that. It's funny. I like that song. It's funny. Some songs you just you might
Get tired tired of?
Yeah, get tired of, or they took really a long time to write or something. It's funny how some
Or they were really
songs,
about a moment that like you don't like some songs we wrote
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago and we just don't feel the same way, and so you don't necessarily feel inspired to play them again. But this one is one that we always love to play.
yeah, I like it, and as long as I keep enjoying it, I'll keep playing it. So, but do you want to do another klezmer?
Yeah, we thought we'd do another tune from my grandfather's repertoire. This is actually one that we've already recorded, but I don't think we played it at the last workshop. For those of you that are here again from our December workshop, this is a fun one called "Bear to Shiver Share," and the share is means scissors. It's like a scissors dance. The share dance was like a square dance, I guess. I don't know as much about Yiddish dancing. I was actually supposed to have a meeting with a Yiddish dance instructor this morning, but it got pushed till tomorrow, so I don't have any illuminating things to share with you. But yeah, I mean, all of these songs were traditionally dances, horas and freilachs and bulgars and shares. There's actually a cool piece called the Philadelphia Share, which I just got a copy of. It's like a 10-page document with like a ton of different tunes on it, and I think Philadelphia klezmer musicians used to just play it through. It was like a staple of all like Jewish weddings in Philadelphia. It was sort of part of the repertoire. I have not sat down and learned the whole thing yet, but I have it now, so that's the first step. So I'm excited to go. I'm sure my grandfather probably played that because that's where he was lived for a long time and made his living playing klezmer music. So I think it'll be fun to work on that as well. But we're not going to do the 10-page one. We're just going to do a single tune called Berdyshev or Share, which Berdyshev is a town in Ukraine. And speaking of healing through music, that's been another really obviously traumatic thing happening right now is watching what's going on in Ukraine, which feels so senseless and so um, and yet we feel so powerless to be able to do anything about it. So that's been very challenging and painful. And so playing this music helps me to kind of I don't know. Jewish music for me is very emotive music, and so it's a good way to kind of. I really try to get inside the music and the song. Really, for anything that we do, it's important to try to be in the experience of the song that you're singing or playing, because I think that makes it a more powerful and impactful experience for both us and the audience. So that's something that I always try to do. The klezmer songs make it easy. Like I feel like it's easier for me to go there. I guess as they say, it's in my blood. But my grandfather immigrated from Staro-Konstantinov, which is west of Kiev. So it was Russia during the time, but it's in Ukraine. So playing his music always makes me think of the people of Ukraine and what they're going through, and just go out to them.
Yeah.
This is Bear to Shiver Share. That's a fun one, very energetic.
It is. It's bouncy.
And I like how I remember when I was actually learned that song, and then I found it later in my grandfather's repertoire, but I learned that at the Swananoa gathering from Eden McAdams Summer, who's a wonderful klezmer fiddler, and she was talking about how in that B section, the second part of that song, there's this kind of this hint of happiness and hopefulness with that D major chord. And it goes right back to the minor. It's sort of like, like just sort of that emotional wave of, there's this little moment of joy and hope, but then it goes back to the the sad minor key.
When we started playing this stuff, I mean, growing up in Hickory, North Carolina, and I'm a non-Jewish person, I'd never really been exposed to klezmer music really at all, and I've considered myself, a reasonably literate music person, but when I was exposed to it through Natalia, and when we started playing some of it, I was just struck by how like she said, it was so emotive, and I felt really drawn to it right away, and I really loved the expression of the music. So it's been really really fun to learn about it and get to play it with her.
Well, I thought we'd play one more song for you, and then maybe open up for a little bit of a discussion about ways that music has impacted you or helped you during challenging times. This last song that we wanted to end with is another song that kind of came out of the news, shall I say. I think this particular song, this was the title track for our previous album, Neighbor. I Am Your Neighbor. I don't know if some of you have heard that song, but that was sort of a theme. Yeah, I think what inspired this song was there was a couple things happening. At the time it was HB2 in North Carolina, as well as a lot of immigration issues, and so the concept for the song. This was a co-write, a collaborative song that John wrote with who all wrote this? Carrie Sickenberger, who's used to live in Greensboro. I don't know if some of you may know her. Laurelyn Dossett. Did Laurelyn chime in this one?
No.
I remember they sang it with Alice Gerard at that.
Well, I remember Laurelyn had written the song a while back, and it had a couple lines in it that sort of stuck with me. And then this song, when I kind of came up with it, was almost like an answer to that song or a continuation of it in some way. And I started writing it, and then I kind of stopped, and I was thinking, Carrie would be a good person to maybe chime in on this song, and she wrote the second verse, and we just put it all together, and it was a really, it's just about being neighborly to one another. What a novel concept. So it's called Neighbor.
You don't know me. I am a stranger. I am a daughter. I am a son. Pleased to meet you. If you'll make my acquaintance, don't be frightened. I have nothing to hide, we might be different. But I am your neighbor. There's things about me you may not understand. Don't be afraid. Fear leads to hate. Let's turn the tide and wash away lines in the sand. You don't see me, but I have my dreams too. Just like your dreams, they've traveled so far. Your constellations, they are my constellations. Here now together, we count the same stars. We might be different, but I am your neighbor. There's things about me you may not understand. Don't be afraid. Fear leads to hate. Let's turn the tide and wash away lines in the sand. We might be different, but I am your neighbor. There's things about me you may not understand. Don't be afraid. Let's turn the tide and wash away lines in the sand. You don't know me. I am a stranger. I am a daughter. I am a son. Pleased to meet you. Thank you. Well, thanks for letting us get to share a few songs today. And if you've got questions or comments, you can type in the chat box or raise your hand, and Leah can facilitate that. And I want to maybe start off the conversation with one story that I had for a way that music helped me during the pandemic. Obviously, I think especially in the beginning, it was a very isolating period. I'm an extrovert. I like hanging out with people, and I love my family, but I like to visit with other people as well. And I remember right next door to us down the creek, a little brewery was supposed to open in March during the pandemic, and they were not able to open because of the pandemic. They finally opened in May, and so we started doing some socially distanced jam sessions down there, and also hiring some of our friends, working musicians that didn't have gigs, to come play there outdoors with people spread out. And that was something that really helped me during the pandemic to kind of feel a sense of community and to be able to reconnect with people and to be able to share music and help my friends and make music together. So that was something that was really important for me during the pandemic, was to have that outlet.
That was beautiful. I've asked everyone to unmute, and if you'd like to turn your cameras on, that would be awesome so we can see everybody. And before we start asking questions or anything, if we can give a big round of applause, I think that would be in order. Thank you both. It was wonderful.
And I just want to say this is the first time I've taken advantage of this program, and I want to thank you very much. It was just great.
I wanted to also thank all the people who organized the program, and as well as the two performers who shared their stories and backstories and shared their wonderful talents with us.
I had a question, and you were talking earlier in the performance about klezmer and kind of klezmer meeting like Appalachian music, or kind of like having different time signatures. And I guess I'm just wanting to know a little bit more about that. Like, what do you think happens when klezmer meets, a different sort of folk music, and like what's created and what excites you about that?
Well, this is what's created.
We're still
You
trying
create-
to figure. No, we're
you-
trying to figure that out still. But
You create what Natalia's dad calls, what did he call it?
Appalachian klezmer.
Appalachian klezmer.
Yeah.
That's what he called it.
I mean, I think like it's cool because the roots. I think we talked about this a little bit at the last workshop, but the roots are very similar. It was as Appalachian and old time music as functional music, and klezmer as functional music. It was played for dances and for celebrations and for people to play together. Community music, community based music, and so I think that there's a lot of similarities. And something like that Bear to Shiver Share has that kind of 4/4 time signature, and so you can blend the two time signatures together. The Share was a fast paced kind of square dance, so that's a way that you can kind of find parallels and find ways for the music to intersect. Because not necessarily all the time signatures do, but like a hora is the same time signature as a waltz. So like the 3/4, hora is more like a dum, 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 bump, bump, but that would fit in nicely with a waltz. So you can sort of see the parallels of those two dance styles that were common here and then common in Eastern Europe. So we've been sort of learning and exploring what some of those parallels are and ways that they can come together. And I would say it's still a work in progress.
I mean, I think that, to add to that, around the world, you see all types of folk musics that are often performed in community settings, and they often have a dance component. And, when you start breaking down, this klezmer music sounds obviously really different in a lot of ways than Appalachian music, but in some ways, when you start breaking them down, they're really not that different. They blend together really well because, klezmer music is a sort of a blend of a bunch of different styles of music. It's got the, older Hebrew influences. It's got, Slavic influences from all different sort of ethnic groups in Eastern Europe. It's got a bunch of different dances that were incorporated. So it's, it's a blend in a lot of ways, just like Appalachian music is a blend. It's a blend of the people that were there and, the communities that it formed in. And it works really well in some ways.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we one time about 15 years ago, we had at the synagogue, we had a group of people that got together and took clogging lessons. Okay, we were doing once a week clogging lessons, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times doing that. But on the last night of our clogging lesson series, I brought with me a CD from the Klezmatics. And I put on one of their nice quick pace tunes, and we all clogged to the klezmer music, and it came out great. And what we discovered was that the clogging, the general clogging posture, which is sort of loose arms hanging around, became very Jewish looking as soon as we raised our hands on our head while we were dancing. It would be totally different. And it really blended the two things together, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we should try that. We haven't actually tried clogging to klezmer because, Phil Jameson is a good friend of ours, and he's an instructor at Warren Wilson College where John and I both teach. And we should try it. We need to get Phil to dance to a klezmer tune. That's a good idea.
Yeah, Renee.
I really enjoyed everything that you shared today. So thank you so much. And I'm always interested about how art comes out of what's happening in our historical context and how it responds to it. And everything that you played was indeed very healing. But I wondered if you were ever moved to compose anything out of rage, and is there any kind of healing connection between allowing your art to address your rage? And is there, a relationship there? I just wanted to know your thoughts about that.
Yeah, John's definitely written a couple of those. Maybe we didn't play them today. We actually thought about that. We could always do a rage song. But
I mean, to answer your question, yes. I mean, I've always been a person who's, like I was talking about before, been really passionate about stuff. I like all kinds of music, and especially I even like, stuff like metal and punk and stuff that's really been traditionally an outlet for angst and rage. And yeah, I mean, one of the songs we played last night was, for example, a song called "Looking Out for You and Me," which is the first song on our Neighbor album. And that was a song that I wrote, again, very quickly, expressly out of frustration and to some extent rage. It was during the previous administration, and I was reading news one morning, and everything about the morning was making me really upset. And I sat down and I wrote that song, and it's very, I wasn't even sure we were going to record it. Again, it was just for me in a lot of ways. I do that a lot. I write songs sometimes just for me, just to get the feelings out. But it's like, there's lead in the water, there's nitrates in our wells, Roundup on the vegetables, cancer in our cells. It really makes me wonder, maybe you'll agree, who's looking out for me, you and me, and it's like that kind of thing. It's real aggressive sounding. And I think rage and anger is a very legitimate feeling, and for a lot of people in a lot of situations. And there needs to be an outlet for that that's healthy, because if not, then we have more problems, right?
Yeah, Where Do You Stand was also, that was also, I wouldn't say it was as angry, but it's kind of a frustrated, that was sort of more of a political song
That was more of a frustration.
Yeah,
think,
that we wrote together sort of about the political polarization in our country. We wrote that a few years ago. But that's another kind of, and it's interesting when you combine lyrics like that with sort of what we call mash grass, sort of these, kind of hard driving bluegrass with like 7 chords, and it kind of, when you add these melodic and harmonic components that are also kind of aggressive and angry, it really can, it just adds more layers to the songs when you can add the music to it like that.
Because I thought about how emotive the klezmer music is, particularly, yes, the joy, but also that almost wailing, crying, pain that gets expressed. It just seems like such an appropriate way of expressing that artistically.
Yeah, absolutely. Klezmer has a lot of that. It's a lot in minor keys. What's the joke? Like, to you, D minor is a key. To me, it's a living. It's like a quote from a klezmer musician. It's like there's a lot of the klezmer music is written in minor keys, and it is very sad and painful. Jewish people have been through a lot of struggles as well as have many groups of people. And so, I think it's a great outlet to be able to
I think a lot of the klezmer music sound, which the minor key adds always a note of sadness. But I think Jewish music in general tends to not real aggressively address rage. It more addresses survival and trying to have some joy during times that could create rage.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's a good point. It's almost resilience, comes to mind, Yeah, music, art imitates life, I think that's such a cliche thing to say, but it's really true. When anybody that's follows themselves and wants to have an artistic expression, it's going to be a natural expression of what they're feeling inside. It just is, I always say, even with musicians, like individual musicians, I feel like they play or sing like their personality, or like how they're feeling in the moment or whatever. It's just really interesting, I think. But yeah, music can, those getting out those frustrations and the anger and the rage and the things that are dark, that's healing too. There's a place for that, for sure. In some ways, that's kind of music I'm drawn to more than a bunch of happy la 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 kind of stuff, because I don't know, just music for me is that place where I'm able to process those feelings, and I think that's a great question.
A recent Bluegrass Music Jam, we had a big discussion about the fact that while we've never done a mathematical analysis of it, it's a great majority of the bluegrass songs, ones that have lyrics, of course, that we call songs, there always seems to be somebody dying or somebody losing their love, or I mean, they're pretty sad songs. Some of the best ones are really sad songs. It's just that I think is the nature of the music.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from earlier on, and even back into the ballad tradition, where a lot of songs were written to commemorate traumatic events, or in the community or elsewhere in bluegrass. And a lot of those bluegrass tunes that you're talking about, even the more contemporary ones, are sort of built on older style tunes like Knoxville Girl or Banks of the Ohio, which have older, predecessors, where you're writing about an event, like let's say there's a murder, and then you sort of commemorate that event, however horrible, in song. And there's sort of a tradition of that goes way back, way beyond bluegrass. But I don't know. I wonder why that became a thing. I don't know.
We tried once to see if it was possible to play "Will the Circle Be Unbroken" in a let's say a little quicker pace, a little sounding a little better. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
The lyrics to that are pretty sad, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of.
That's a funeral dirge, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're coming up on our time here. I just wanted to thank Zoe and Cloyd so much for, again, performing for us. I just absolutely love your music and appreciate you being with us today. And thanks again to Carolina Foundation for Jewish Seniors for sponsoring this program. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We were very happy to have you.